coexist and conflicted with each other. There are many examples of mothers who were transformed and revered as mountain spirits, such as deities of Chiri Mountain, Chisulyeong and Unja Mountain. More about conduct to the dissemination of Buddhism during the reign of King Jinpyong of the Silla dynasty and demonstrated how the religion integrated into Buddhism. In these, the Holy Mountain is analyzed in the context of the relationship between Buddhism and Buddhism and Shanti. In this, Buddhism shares the universal universal characteristic of all religion when they influence and adapt in accordance with indigenous beliefs. Thank you for listening.
Thank you to everyone. Our next speaker is Sarah Harding, who is a Lama in the Shangpa Kagyu tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. She became a student of the late Master Kalu Rinpoche in 1972 and completed the first traditional 3-year retreat for Westerners under his guidance in 1980. She works as a teacher and translator at various centres around the United States. She has been a faculty member at Naropa University since 1992, where she teaches a full range of religious studies classes. She is currently working on textual translation and research as a fellow of the Tsadra Foundation. Her published work includes Creation and Completion, Lion's Gaze, Marchik's Complete Explanation, The Life and...
May I say something? The paper is on page 63. It's cut down quite a bit from there. And it's part of a book coming out of translations of this woman, Niguma. So I'll just start reading. The mysterious Niguma was an Indian woman from Kashmir who probably lived in the 11th century. Not only are the dates uncertain, but so too is almost everything about her. I will explore what there is to know and not know about Niguma. What does stand firmly as testimony to her existence is her legacy of teachings, which form the very core of the Shangpa Kagyu lineage, one of the 8 great chariots of the practice lineages that were later identified as the main conduits through which experiential Buddhism spread from India to Tibet. Who was this phantasmic lady, Niguma? I will include here the brief biography found in the Golden Rosary of Shangpa biographies, but other than that, one finds only hints and guesses from other sources. For instance, here is a typical description from the great Tibetan master Taranatha. Quote, the Dakini Niguma's place of birth was the Kashmiri city called Incomparable. Her father was the Brahmin Shantivarman. Her real name was Srijnana. The accumulations of merit and wisdom for 3 incalculable aeons. Thus, in this life as Niguma, based on the teachings of the instructions by the adept Lavapa, and some others, she manifested the signs of progress in the secret mantra Vajrayana and attained the body of union. So her body became a rainbow-like form. She had the ability to really hear teachings from the great Vajradhara. Having become a great bodhisattva, her emanations pervaded everywhere and accomplished the welfare of beings. End quote. The elusiveness of Niguma is typical of the lore of the Dakini, the very embodiment of liminal spiritual experience. Additionally, the difficulty of pinpointing historical information may well be due to the lack of ancient sources in India and the lack of concern about such mundane matters by the Tibetan masters who encountered her in dreams and visions and maybe in person. After all, when confronted with the blazing apparition of the resplendent and daunting dark Dakini bestowing critical, cryptic advice, a background check would be rendered irrelevant. Indian Buddhist hagiographies are virtually unknown, whether of men or women. In Tibet, where hagiography became a prolific genre in its own right, those of women were extremely rare for all the usual reasons. It is in the experience of those heroes who encountered the Dakini that one finds the most information and which are invested with the value of spiritual meaning. In the Golden Rosary of Shangpa biographies, Nguma's life story consists of only 6 folia, 6 pages, half of which is a supplication prayer to her, while that of her disciple, Chungpo Naljor, called A Mere Mention, is 43 folia, and those of her brother Naropa and other adepts such as Taranata, Tantong Gyalpo, and so forth, where Nguma is mentioned, are much, much longer than that. Even more distressing, I have discovered that half of the remaining half of Nguma's life story, the part that concerns her birthplace, appears to be directly lifted from a biography of Naropa. Perhaps she really is just an adornment on the lives of great saints, a figment of men's imaginations. That, of course, is something one has to wonder and worry about in nearly all of the more ancient writings about Dakinis. The idealized image of a female messenger, awesome keeper of the great mysteries to be revealed only to the deserving spiritual virtuoso, is packed with power and intrigue for both male and female practitioners. Though unique in its particulars to Himalayan Buddhism, it is found in reminiscent forms throughout the cultures and religions of the world. The mystery of the Dakini herself will not be revealed because she is the very definition of mystery, and were she discovered by other than mystics, it would not be she. But what of the actual woman behind the image? In the case of a reportedly historical woman, such as Nguma, we should be able to find at least some hint of a subjective story, something to convince us that she is more than the object or projection of the practitioner's realization, and more than the other of the male self. We seek her as the subject of her own story. Nguma's life does present us with a few crumbs. First of all, her birthplace is known to be in Kashmir, a hub of Buddhist activity, particularly of the tantric type, and probably in close quarters with the Shaivite tradition and other forms of esoteric Hinduism. The specific town, or perhaps monastery, is called Peme in Tibetan, meaning without comparison, translating Anupama. But we find in her biography that this is not a real town, exactly, but one that has been created by an illusionist. So the first hard fact is already shaky. Nguma's family relationships are similarly slippery, particularly when it comes to her connection with Naropa, her contemporary and a great adept, whose teachings on the 6 dharmas learned from Tilopa spread widely in Tibet. The names of her parents given above by Taranata are indeed the same as those of Naropa in his biography. Those same biographies tell the story of those parents' first child, Srishnyana, Nguma, and how they had to perform special supplications for a male child after her birth. We also have the name of Naropa's wife, Vimala, with whom he parted to pursue his spiritual career. Naropa is sometimes said to be from Bengal in the east, but there is little evidence for this theory, and most authors locate his birthplace in Kashmir along with Nguma, his sister. There is even some evidence that Naropa's well-known hermitage of Pushpahari, or Pulahari, commonly identified as being in Bodh Gaya, may have been in Kashmir. In Nguma's biography, it simply mentions that he, Naropa, was also in the area. Despite any misinformed discrepancies, it would seem to be quite clear that Nguma and Naropa were sister and brother. Yet scholars, mostly Western, have insisted on suggesting that Nguma was his consort, perhaps his sister too, in a sort of tantalizing tantric gossip. Skipping a page or two. Nguma's teacher was, famously, the Buddha Vajradhara. The only piece of specific information about Nguma's human teachers that I have from my sources is her connection with a certain Lavapa. However, Lavapa is not mentioned by name in Nguma's life story, where it says only she directly saw the truth of the nature of phenomena just by hearing some instructive advice from a few adept masters. The only two named masters in the life story are Naropa and Ratnavajra, and again, only as cohabitants in Kashmir. Again, the commonly held belief that Nguma received the 6 dharmas from Naropa seems to be unsubstantiated. In fact, the Blue Annals, following a similar statement in Chumpo Naljar's biography, quotes Nguma saying that these 6 doctrines are known only to myself and Lavapa, end quote. Here's another version by Taranatha with its veiled jab at this unidentified Lavapa, her supposed teacher. It says, Nguma listened for a bit to instructions from Lavapa of the East, and then, after meditating for 7 days, together with the master himself, she became a Dakini of timeless awareness with a rainbow body. She manifested the realization of the 8th level. It is said that Lavapa of the East did not gain the full rainbow body because he left behind a palm-sized portion of the crown of his head. This Lavapa is the lesser. The name Nguma accords with the Indian language, which is Ngupta, and it is said to mean truly secret or truly hidden. In fact, it is the code language of the Dakinis of timeless awareness, end quote. The symbolic or code language of the Dakinis is itself truly hidden. Masters of meditation decipher these communications in moments of inspiration, but by the time we hear what they might be, they have already been translated and carry all the perils of that craft, including possible fraud. We can see a few indecipherable graphics called Dakini code letters in treasure texts, but even this is only a subcategory of the mystery code language itself. In his commentary on the treasure text Lamrim Yeshin Yingpo, the great 19th century master Jamgon Kongtrul explains, quote, a person endowed with the karmic continuation and destiny will, by means of profound coincidence of place, time, and aspiration, be able to decode the symbolic meaning of these treasure letters that are Nirmanakayas, the Vajra forms endowed with all eminent aspects, and establish them correctly in writing, end quote. Perhaps the Dakini code language is beyond verbal communication with its necessarily dualistic and designatory nature, but then why call it language? Symbolic communication is specifically distinguished from nonverbal transmission in the Nyingma tripartite divisions of Dzogchen teachings, where the symbolic lineage of the awareness holder falls neatly between the nonverbal lineage of the Buddhas, thought or intention, and the oral lineage of ordinary people. Janet Jatso suggests that the Dakini, in keeping with her playful character, is quote, working within language to subvert it, drawing attention to its own dualistic structures while never retreating outside of its realm, end quote. And certainly the esoteric teachings of the Tantras themselves in their written form are known to be coded. After all, the common name for those teachings is secret mantra. The Dakini code language is a secret within that secret and seems to be reserved for the most profound and spontaneous experiences of only very gifted practitioners. Taranatha makes no attempt to tell us what the name Nguma really means in that language, leaving it rather to the initiated to find out. In a similar way, it is difficult to precisely identify Nguma's other attributes that recur in most sources, although they are reported as quantifiable facts. She had high-level realization, placing her in the pure or non-dissipating levels, or bhumis. She attained the so-called rainbow body, and most famously, she could receive teachings directly from Buddha Vajradhara. What do these qualities actually mean, other than ways to impress us? I explore those lofty attributes in my forthcoming book on Nguma. As much as I have searched for this Dakini named Nguma and hope to find her as an actual person and the subject of her own story, it may have been in vain. The more I dig, the more elusive she becomes. No doubt I am looking in all the wrong places, in old books and dusty corners. Still, I hope that this might be more than another case of the female as a vehicle of meaning for men, or that, as one post-Buddhist feminist puts it, the place of the male as subject is unconsciously protected whilst creating a notion of fluidity around the concept of the female body. I might have to admit, however, that she is primarily an important event in the lives of the men who saw her rather than a historically locatable person. These, in any case, are really the only sources of information. Her own story, if it ever existed, is not to be found other than the few details that I have explored here. The following is a translation from the Golden Rosary of Shangpa biographies and constitutes the second account there, immediately after that of the Buddha Vajradhara. So this is her life story translation. Homage to all the holy gurus. From the sky-like nature of the Dharmakaya, light rays of the sun, moon-like form kayas illuminate the mental darkness of those to be tamed. I bow reverently at the feet of the holy guru. With that, I would express here just a fraction of the life story of Nguma, the Dakini of timeless awareness. The land of her birth was the great city called Anupama, located in Kashmir. That place, moreover, was a city emanated by an illusionist. The way in which it was emanated is this. During the time of the previous Buddha, Kashyapa, there was an arhat named Madhyantika. At that distant time, the entire area was covered by water. The arhat wished to build a vihara at that country, so he requested land from the Naga king. The Naga said, "We will give you as much land as you can cover, sitting in lotus posture." Then the arhat emanated a huge body there and covered all the territories of Kashmir. As the Naga had promised, ground arose there, and a vihara called Amita Bhavana was built. The local people were truly amazed, so they sent for an illusionist. That illusionist emanated the great city called Anupama by using the example of the great city of Sudarshana. But before the illusion could be dissolved, the illusionist was killed, and so it has remained until now. Everyone said that this city had no exact comparison to anything in this world, and so it became known as incomparable. There are even 3,600,000 beer maids there. That is why it is called special. The great Pandita Narottama and Ratnavajra both lived there. Now about the Dakini of timeless awareness herself. She was born as the daughter of the Brahmin Shantivarma and the Brahmini Srimati. She was Naropandita's sister and a member of the Brahmin caste. She had cultivated the path previously during 3 incalculable aeons, and its continuity was actualized so that in this life she directly saw the truth of the nature of phenomena just by hearing some instructive advice from a few adept masters. Her dissipating illusory body arose as the non-dissipating kaya. Dwelling in the 3 pure levels, she encountered the great Vajradhara Buddha in person. After she had fully received from him the complete 4 empowerments in the emanated mandala of secret mantra Mahayana, she developed the timeless wisdom of the understanding of all Dharma doors, sutras, tantras, esoteric instructions, treatises, and so on. She realized all Dharmas the way they are and the way they appear in their multiplicity, and became a real bodhisattva, dwelling on the 10th level, cloud of Dharma. Cognitive obscuration became more and more subtle until there was nothing left to eliminate. She was none other than a Buddha. an epitome of the three kayas. Having perfected renunciation and realization for her own welfare, she continues to accomplish the welfare of others through the two form kayas, benefiting whatever beings are to be tamed until the end of cyclic existence. In particular, she watches over the holders of the lineage with impartial compassion, blessing them and compassionately overseeing the success of their enlightened activity. Even more specifically, on the great adept Trungpa Naljer, she fully conferred the complete four empowerments in the emanated mandala and gave him the oral transmission of unimaginable tantras and esoteric instructions. In particular, she gave many profound and vast pithy instructions that have the power to establish worthy recipients in the awakened state of manifest realization with one body in one lifetime. Nguma sealed this with a command that it not spread beyond a one-to-one lineage for 7 generations. She then prophesied that the disciples and holders of this lineage will go on to the celestial realm Kachara. Such is the very lineage that is exalted above others. And I'd like to join my aspiration prayer with the aspiration prayer that's written in this text. By this merit, may all persons who hold the lineage maintain themselves in the manner of the Guru's life story. By the pure white virtue of writing this, may I and the sponsors, teachers, and students, and all sentient beings of the 3 realms quickly attain unsurpassed awakening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Khalsang Dorji Bucha, who is a PhD candidate in the Department of Buddhist Studies, Delhi University, and is teaching Buddhist and Asian history at the University of Alabama during 2009-2010. His research interests include Sikkimese history and the role of treasure discoverers, Gatur Ston, in Tibetan cultural areas and state formation. Khalsang is a Lama in the Sikkimese Jogen Chenru tradition and studied at Pema Yangtze Monastery and in his family lineage alongside his Western education. His talk is on page 74. Thank you.
Bài của cô, bài của ông sẽ vào trang 74 trong bản tiếng Anh.
Line connected? Can you hear? All right, okay. First of all, a big Guzuzangbo from me, Tashtele, and a big namaste, namaskar to everybody. I would just like to go very quickly and would not like to introduce myself more because as, what's your name? You've done it, yeah. All right. So Jichin Mingyur is famed as a member of Jichin Institution of Female Practitioners in the Mindoling tradition of Nyingmapa Tibetan Buddhism. These women, who are renowned in Tibetan Buddhism as female practitioners of the highest order, have historically been the daughters of the important Mindoling hierarchs, the throne holders who are descended from the founder of the Mindoling tradition, Terdak Lingpa. Jichin Mingyur Paudrin was the daughter of Terdak Lingpa and is considered to have been one of his major lineage holders. Many references to the life of Jichin Mingyur Paudrin linked her inevitably to her father, particularly efforts to continue his lineage after his death in 1714. Her effort that Mindolin tradition continued to flourish and reconsolidated the institution's positions as the premier center of the Nyingma tradition in central Tibet. However, from her relationship with her famous father and her rebuilding efforts, Jigchen Mingyur Palden was a remarkably religious practitioner and teacher in her own right. Jigchen Mingyur Palden's textual biography, written by one of her students, is a fascinating outlines the broad of her Buddhist activities. In this paper, I will focus on the lesser known life that took place when Jigchen Mingyur Palden and her family were forced into exile to escape the Mongols in 1718. The family led to a small kingdom of Sikkim in the eastern Himalayas, where Jigchen Mingyur Palden had been repeatedly invited to teachings by the Lhachen Dzogchen Lama Jigme Pao. Her time in Sikkim was a historic occasion for both the Mindolin tradition, as it solidified its link with the kingdom of Sikkim and also Sikkim itself, as Jigchen Mingyur Palden was responsible for transmitting many important teachings during a stay in Sikkim. Some sources that she stayed in Sikkim for several months. Others state that she stayed for 2 years. Jigchen Mingyur Palden's own biography outlines this period, but Sikkimese records add new perspectives to her stay in Sikkim. These records include different information about her visit. They describe the ill-fated marriage between the fourth king of Sikkim, Gyome Namgyal, and Jigchen Mingyur Palden's sister, Mingyur Do. Dates unknown, revealing new perspectives on the relationship between Mindolin lineage and the Sikkimese state. By reading these texts together, we gain new perspectives on the importance of Jigchen Mingyur to Sikkimese Buddhism as well as to Tibetan Buddhism. Jigchen Mingyur was the fourth of the 7 children born by treasure revealer and teacher Tevdak Lingpa and his consort Yun Pinchok Palzom. She was born in Darji Valley in central Tibet in 1699. On the day of birth, Tevdak Lingpa pronounced that the girl would bring great benefit to sentient beings. From a young age, she exhibited many unusual characteristics, including great intelligence, innate knowledge of Buddhism, and compassion. She spent most of her young life receiving empowerments and teachings from her father and other teachers, and practicing in retreat. She was enthroned as a full lineage holder in the Mindolin tradition, and her father repeatedly told her and other members of the family that she would be a and great teacher. The Lingpa passed away when she was 16 years old. When she was 17, her uncle Longchen Dharmashiri ordained her as a nun and stated that she would be a significant lineage holder in the future. This prophecy exhibited great foresight, for there was trouble on the horizon that would lead to the death of several important Mindolin hierarchs. The Dzonga Mongols arrived in Tibet in 1718 and destroyed many monasteries in their ambition to consolidate their authority over Tibetan territory. At this time, Longchen Dharmashri and other main lineage holders, Mingyur Palden's brother, Pema Gyur, were imprisoned in Lhasa. Jigchen Mingyur Palden had been in retreat following her father's death, but the news of her uncle's and brother's captivity made her concerned about Mindolin's future. As a result, she left her retreat. The community members who had managed to escape being captured by Mongols urged Mingyur Palden to flee and avoid capture. According to the biography of Jigme Pao, the history of Sikkim, Mingyur Palden foresaw the best course of action contained in an instruction given by her father before his death. Her father had left a prophecy in an offering cake, which fell over and broke open to reveal a secret message. It said, Mingyur Paulding, take your mother and brother and flee to Sikkim. This warning, along with other signs, led Mingyur Paulding to don the disguise of a lay person and leave. A small group of companions across away from fighting. As she escaped, the mosque was entirely razed and the local area devastated. During her escape, Mingyur Paulding's mother and sister were captured by the Mongols. The Mongol army pursued Mingyur Paulding all the way to Sikkim. Her escape was treacherous one during which she became ill and due to exhaustion. However, when she did arrive in Sikkim, she received a royal welcome. The king sponsored her to give public empowerments and teachings, and many people gathered to meet her. She taught her father's teaching as well as her own. She also exchanged teachings regarding Sikkimese Dzogchen with Jignepal. Mingyur Paulding also visited many of the sacred sites of Sikkim and taught nearly in important monasteries. Another story from her biography states that at this time, Mingyur Paulding's mother and sister managed to escape from Mongols and join her. But the Mongols fought in hot pursuit. Mingyur Paulding apparently performed a war ritual that caused many obstacles to arise from the Mongols on the way and prevented them from arriving. The Mongolian army in Lhasa was also beginning to fall apart due to internal feudings. Eventually, Mingyur Paulding received notice that she and others could return to Mindroling. Before their return, another crucial event occurred that was intended to consolidate links between Mindroling and Sikkim when the king of Sikkim was married to Mingyur Paulding's younger sister. While the marriage was intended to consolidate the relationship between different branches of Mindroling lineage, it was not to last. Within a few years, the marriage dissolved as it was not happy. This was seen as being part of Sikkim's bad luck at the time, but it's also attributed to the sisters' ugliness. The feelings between the king and the queen became increasingly cold, reflected in their behavior to one another, and they could not get along. Sikkim's political situation was increasingly unstable due to Gurkha activity, and this was used as an excuse for Mingyur Dorma to return to Mindroling. Despite this unsuccessful marital alliance, the relationship between Sikkim and Mindroling remained a strong one. Jigchen Mingyur Paulding returned to Mindroling to begin her rebuilding efforts, and her reputation as a teacher continued to grow. She transmitted many important empowering Sangha and local lay people, went on pilgrimages, and became acclaimed throughout Tibet to the extent that she was even requested to perform important ceremonies for the central Tibetan government. She established an archive of documents and published many rare lineage texts, thereby ensuring their survival. Jigchen Mingyur Paulding was also committed to the women in her lineage and establishing several institutions where nuns and yoginis could commit themselves to practice. In 1769, Mingyur Paulding passed away at the age of 70. Her important contributions to Sikkimese Buddhism are still remembered. However, because she transmitted many important teachings during her visit that remain vital parts of the Nyingmapa tradition in Sikkim, her influence and tireless activities in Sikkim, as well as in central Tibet, have ensured that Jigchen Mingyur Paulding remains an extremely important and beloved female teacher throughout even remote parts of the Himalayas. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Elise Ann DeVito, who received a PhD in history from Harvard University. She taught world history and women's history as an associate professor in the Department of History at National Taiwan Normal University for many years. Her publications include Taiwan's Buddhist Nuns and numerous articles on Taiwanese Buddhism. She is currently an associate professor in the Department of History at the St. Bonaventure University, New York, and is researching 20th century Vietnamese Buddhism. Her talk is on page 78. Thank you.
How do you make this like, is it broadcasted?
I think they've
Okay. How do we make it like, okay. So we have to like make it like the,
would like this bit, wouldn't you? Could you let me do it? Thank you. This part.
everybody. I'm very happy and honored to be here. Thank you very much for all. Thank you. My paper is part of a large research project about the royal of Vietnam's last dynasty and their contributions to Buddhism. The name of my presentation is 3 Generations of Eminent Nuns in Vietnam, particularly the central part of Vietnam. Vietnam has a tradition of bhikkhunis since at least the 12th century. And from the 20th century, Buddhist reformers increased the opportunities for nun education and training in Vietnam and throughout Asia. As we know, there is still much research to be undertaken on the history of Buddhist nuns in Vietnam. This paper first introduces one of Vietnam's most eminent nuns, Shuba Hieu Kong. She lived from 1905 to 1997, and she's from Hue. The paper to Suba's outstanding disciple, Venerable Ji Hai, 1938 to 2000, and she's also from Hue. Last paper considers how these nun disciples continue their master's work, charitable works, and also the progress of their own projects today. Now, Suba, 1905, she was the youngest child of siblings. Her father was a high official under the last 3 kings of Vietnam. She was well educated. She knows Chinese, French, and she was taught about the literature, history, and politics of Vietnam. Before she became a nun, she participated in charitable associations founded by one of her friends. And Suba in 1926 a women's workers' union to sell handmade goods. She was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. She also founded another association to help poor people. We should note that she is from a very pious and devout family. In history, many families were Buddhists and patrons of Buddhism. Her paternal aunt was the first nun that we know of in Hue. And this nun, the first nun in Hue, she organized classes for nuns. She trained other nuns in Hue. So Suba knew about these people. They were her relatives. Now, Suba, in 27, she was a disciple of a monk, a very famous monk. And she took the 3 refuges at age 27. Her family donated land for a pagoda, and they built a very famous nunnery called Dio Dak. And from the 1930s till today, it's very famous in Hue. It trains nuns. Her parents passed away in 1941, and then she became fully ordained. Now, in 1920s to 40s, Vietnam experienced a Buddhist renovation or modernization movement like other countries at the time. And Suba was she was involved with the Buddhist revival. She and other famous Buddhists founded the Annam Buddhist Association in central Vietnam. She raised money for many nunneries there, and they're beautiful, and they're still training nuns there. And she founded all central and southern Vietnam. She founded schools and a primary school. She also helped found One Xing University in Saigon in the 60s. She founded a Buddhist publishing house, and she contributed a lot to the Buddhist periodicals. She was a very famous poet too. She translated many Buddhist works from Chinese to Vietnamese. She was an ordination master, gave Dharma talks. She founded orphanages all over Vietnam. Also, took action to protect Buddhists and Buddhism, especially during the 1960s Buddhist struggle. She was also involved with that. And that's Suba, right. After 75, she was an ordination master and a member of the Hue and national level Buddhist church. She continued to support Buddhist education, write poetry, and at age 80, she started to translate the Dharma. And she finished it the day she died. She completed the project in 1997 and passed away. Her monastic disciples are many all over Vietnam, all over the world. I visited one of her disciples in Hue, but she has many. Now, named Ji Hai, and she's also from Hue. And Ji Hai's family is descended from the Ming, so she is a royal member. She was born in 1938, and she always wanted to be a nun. And here's some pictures of Ji Hai with her family, and then when she was a student with her long hair. And also, in the early 60s, she studied in the master's program of English in University of Indiana, Bloomington. So there she is in the cafeteria, figuring out American food, what to do. And there, Master Ji Hai. She took the tonsure with Hieu Kung in 64, and then she became at One University. She was also the manager for the School of Youth for Social Service. She was fully ordained in 1970. She lectured at One Xing University. She was also the head of Vietnam during the war, 65. She was a nation master. I love her. She was illustrator, teacher, poet, editor, publisher. She knew English, French, some German, and Pali. She published more. She also engaged in charitable and relief activities in central Vietnam, South Vietnam. But tragically, when she was returning from a charity trip, she and two other nuns died in a car accident. It's very sad. In 2003. I like her. She looked how she's right to people. She built a pagoda in memory of her master in Ho Chi Minh City, and today the 6 nuns there. And these nuns, there's one nun that decided to become a nun after she heard Jihai lecture on the Diamond Sutra. And this nun is a translator and a publisher too. And these sisters continue Jihai's charity work. Many charity works. They visit cancer patients in the hospital and so on. So this paper has shown how important women are for Buddhism in Vietnam, owners, patrons, and nuns. And it reinforces the critical necessity of education and full ordination for nuns. We can see the power of Dharma masters as scholars, leaders, teachers, and role for women and men. And I urge everyone to interview nuns and lay people and write the histories of Buddhist nuns in Hue and all over Vietnam from all historical periods. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the
business members of parliament, we as presidents and chairman of Buddhist Association.
And how are they dealing with this situation?
She wants the people to go through that. Nobody like it. If anything
Her biography is on page 225, and the title of her talk is Modern Lotus of Women Wisdom, the Buddhist Poetry by Women Poets.
Good afternoon. Honorable Moms, Bhikshuni, and all friends in Dharma. I'm much honored to be here today, as it is a very special occasion to Venerable Bhikkhu Bhikshuni and all friends in Dharma. I'm much honored today to be speaking in this
Dạ, mời
great
lên bàn chứng
temple
mừng, mời
for
lên bàn
this
chứng minh đến
special
sư Ngọc ơi.
occasion. My topic today is Modern Lotus of Wisdom, Thai Buddhist Poetry by Women Poet.
Dạ, xin mời quý
This study is an attempt to explore and explain the transformation of Thai didactic poetry, especially Buddhist poetry by women poets. The texts selected are Dawn in the Night by Chom Chan and Under the Rain and Thunder by Kun Ying Jamnongsi Rattanin. In Thai tradition, women poets rarely hold a high position nor have authority in teaching Dharma. In the didactic poetry, monks poets or male poets are the norm. These two women poets convey the teaching of Dharma to expressing artistically their personal experience of practicing Dharma. This aspect transforms the tradition of Thai didactic poetry by emphasizing the practice of Dharma in daily life and not only the faith in Dharma. These poets are showing their readers a direct path to wisdom. The message conveyed in their work is quite universal, though writing as practicing Buddhists. Thus, these poets are no longer addressing the limited audience of Buddhists. They are speaking to a wider audience and propagating Buddhism not as a religion, but as a message of wisdom for all mankind. The influence of Buddhism in modern poetry. In my research work on Buddha Dharma in modern poetry, I found that there is a significant influence of Buddha Dharma or Buddhist philosophy in a large number of works by contemporary Thai poets. These works by contemporary Thai poets are much influenced by the teaching of Buddhadasa Bhikkhu, who emphasize the practice of Buddhism in daily life and advocate the importance of contemplating nature as a means of spiritual development. The two women poets, Chom Chan and Jamnongsi Rattanin, could be included in this category. They both had the experience of practicing Buddhism at Suan Mok, a famous retreat monastery of Buddhadasa in southern Thailand. Chom Chan and Jamnongsi Rattanin are, however, quite different from other contemporary poets. They are not poets who normally write didactic poetry, nor are they professional poets with a large number of works. Chom Chan is a famous literary critic and a very prolific novelist. Dawn in the Night is her first book of poetry. Jamnongsi Rattanin is a well-known literary translator and a playwright. She mostly composes prose poetry and tales rather than conventional poetry. Under the Rain and Thunder is a record of her retreat in the forest monastery of Suan Mok. Both of them are modern poets who write to convey their ideas, feelings, and experiences. Even though the message is a message of Buddha Dharma, they do not try particularly to follow the convention of Buddhist poetry of the past. Most Thai Buddhist poets could compose poetry to relate Jataka tales in order to express their faith in Buddha and their purpose of relating merit to spreading the Dharma for the benefit of all sentient beings. These two poets are apparently trying to share their experience of studying and practicing Dharma. They their feelings and contemplation regarding the nature of the mind and how to develop mindfulness, leading finally to wisdom. Dawn in the Night, A Birth of Wisdom. Two poems have been selected from Dawn in the Night by Chom Chan. They appear good representation of Chom Chan poetry because their content are primarily about to gain wisdom through spiritual practice, as contemplation on life and meditation. The name of Chom Chan's book, Dawn in the Night, is obviously an exquisite metaphor for the birth of wisdom. Dawn light or wisdom, whereas night signifies darkness, or in a very Buddhistic term, ignorance. Dawn in the night could therefore mean the birth of wisdom out of ignorance. As a whole, contain poems relating a fine contemplation of life on the poet's part. The first poem selected here shows how the poet sees life as a cruel burden, impossible to get rid of just because of our own ignorance. Carrying a yoke. How heavy is this yoke? The shoulder can no longer bear it. How long has it been far for a happy man? Why grumble and complain? Why get with this ugly world? Why complain of bad karma? Why so much for so long? I pay respect to the Buddha. Please relieve all my pain. I've suffered tremendous pain. They are burning my heart to death. The Buddha image smiles and stares. How many heaps of suffering are there? How many worlds you own? One pain, just let go. Put them down, human. Put down. They are control. The yoke choke. The night. The concept of life or the five aggregates as a heavy thing is apparent in many Buddhist texts. So it's surprising here that the poet expressed this idea to a metaphor of everything. The poet links this concept to the popular belief of bad karma of the past as a cause of suffering in the present life. However, the poet would like to convey is that according to the genuine teaching of the Buddha, our suffering in life is more a result of our attachment or craving. Thus, the mention of the Buddha and the advice of letting go. Also, the poet emphasized the power of one's wisdom to control life. The poet explicitly says that the sufferings are under your control and the carrying of a yoke in fact your own choice. Through this explicit message, the poet is rendering a higher teaching to her audience rather than a conventional teaching of asking a blessing from the Buddha and accepting the bad karma of the past because there is no remedy for it. By stating the ultimate truth of letting go as a general for life in this world, the poet is pointing to a direct path of wisdom. This direct path of wisdom will be beneficial to present life because it wakes us to the reality of life and cultivates an understanding that could further develop to a higher level of enlightenment. The value of self-contemplation